Well, look, it has been so far a cruel, cruel summer. Remember that song? Well, especially the case if you're the average woman who seems to run colder. We've talked about the gender pay gap, inequality, but offices, they can also be a sexist place because of the number on the thermometer. And joining us now is King 5 science journalist Juliana Viglione to actually talk about this. And let me just give context for this conversation. We were just talking about the office temperature and how people were cold and
freezing.
And you said, you know, there's science for this. And I'm like, really? So tell me about that.
Yeah, well, so yesterday at our, morning meeting, all the women are in jackets and, rubbing our hands together. And it turns out there's a reason for this. So a couple years ago, they did this analysis that women's metabolic rate is lower than men's. And so metabolic rate is how much energy you burn, right? So when you go for a run, your rate goes up, and then when you're sitting, it goes back down.
Right.
Which is why you feel hot after a run. So because women's rates are 3/4 on average lower, or only 3/4 of a men's metabolic rate, that means in general we feel colder.
Okay.
So now to get to the work side of it, most of the heating and cooling standards for buildings are actually relics of the 60s.
Oh.
And so they're based on an average man's metabolic rate and don't take into account the sort of shifting demographics of the workplace.
Very interesting. And you were saying even our hand temperature, it differs, like men 90 degrees and women 87.2.
Yeah, almost 3 degrees difference between average man's hand temperature and average women's. And that makes you feel colder, and then it's actually like a vicious cycle, right? Because then when you feel colder, actually the blood vessels in your extremities constrict so that less blood gets through, so you lose less heat as an evolutionary trick.
Okay.
But when we're in like an office where we're not in danger of freezing to death, we hope, it makes it feel very unpleasant.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, Juliana, for coming on and sharing this. So next time you're in the car with someone of the opposite sex and you're disputing the air conditioning, you actually have science to back it up.
Yep.
And it's time for offices to kind of move forward
Get with
the
the picture.
times. Yeah, totally.